Nick Andrews, the Texan, is here this morning, and we're heading into the deep woods. Scouted this spot. I think I made a YouTube short or an Instagram reel about it or something. Made a little vertical video. Found a little cedar thicket way back in here. I hiked for miles and miles in these woods and didn't find much, and I'd say 90% of them. But I found a cedar thicket back here about a week and a half ago that was just torched with fresh rubs, big scrapes. There was a real good crossing at the head of this ditch. You can't see very far. That's right where that big scrape was at. I mean, it was a freaking car hood scrape. And there wasn't a leaf one in it. You could tell where multiple bucks had worked it, and we're getting on close to the rut. I mean, bucks have really started moving in the last couple of days, like cruising, searching for does. Miles killed a nice buck a few days ago up at the farm, and he was grunting, chasing a doe. We saw another big buck that same evening that was cruising, that was moving long distances during the day. We saw a pile of deer driving in this morning. So they're up moving right now. We got a warm front coming in. So the next couple of days ain't going to be real great for hunting weather. But then a cold front will hit right before Halloween, and Halloween is going to be money. However, we're kind of at the tail end of this latest cold front right now. This warm front is moving in this morning. The south winds really picked up overnight, and they're blowing right now 10-15 miles an hour. That should help us get down here and get in the tree. Still fairly cool. Today's high is supposed to be in the mid-70s, but tomorrow's supposed to be like 84. So we probably won't even hunt tomorrow and be too warm. But it's 50 this morning, so I'll take that. 50 degrees in the rut. It's time to go. We're going to slide in here to the cedar thicket, see what we can put together next few hours here. Dang it. God dang it. You're here now. Happens every single time. It means I'm sitting up on top of the deer, but dang it, man. Well, up we go anyhow. Brought a great stick, just because in my notes, it's a big tree. Well, as y'all can probably hear, we have some dogs nearby. And you're going to have to put up with them same as we are, because you're going to probably hear them the entire time we're up here hunting. I don't think they're going to shut up anytime soon. Got lots of squirrels in the woods waking up. We had a deer try coming through this crossing, and we're hunting before daylight. I don't know if it heard us or saw us up here moving around or what, but took off bounding that direction. It didn't blow or anything. It just kind of hear it over there stomping and then walking around. And now we don't hear anything. I'll walk y'all through this setup a little bit later with one of the GoPros, but right now we need to just be watching for deer. Right in between two bedding areas and a funnel. Got a big old scrape about 15 yards from us. So we better be on our toes this morning. It might happen fast, and it does. stand steady. And then it tips. There's a buck.
I don't think you're going to have to worry about it.
Should cross, go this way. Let's give this a whirl.
It sounded like he stopped.
He said I didn't want to get my butt whipped anyway.
He said, I'm out. 38 more.
As soon as I seen him, I'm like, oh, I'm going to think hard about that one. He's a little bit bigger than the one that I had
Yeah,
a couple days ago.
that's good. That's progress. We just need him to filter down this way.
Probably a big 2-year-old.
Strong.
He did not like that snort wheeze.
No,
He's like, I better hightail it out of here.
that's too much aggression.
Yeah. He come right through that crossing up there, but he took that high trail. Most of those trails through that crossing come right here in front of this tree. That's great right there, but
A little bit of action, a little bit of action.
good action. Good action. Real nice buck. That buck walks into 10 yards. I'm gonna have a hard time not shooting him.
Yeah.
What'd you think as soon as you see him? Were you like, oh, this one might be in trouble? Don't mess around out here on the public land, especially in the big woods. You don't get very many chances at nice buck on the public.
When you do, you gotta scrap.
All right, it's 10:30. Me and Nick are going to be getting down here shortly. I wanted to show y'all what this setup looks like. This is a spot that I scouted probably 10 days ago. There's a cedar thicket over there on that far ridge, and there's a dead tree down here at the bottom of this ditch. It'd be hard to see from here, but it runs up like that, and right around that dead tree, kind of at the head of that ditch, there's 2 or 3 trails that all meet right there. And then right here, there's a scrape. About 15 yards away, there's a bunch of leaves in it now because they hadn't been working it recently, but that don't mean they ain't here, obviously. There's rubs up through there, and a trail that comes right through there. Then we've got a little inside corner over here with a field out that direction. And that buck this morning come right up that inside corner and cut in the woods back this way. Right up there where he come through right up there where he cut that corner, there's a big crossing where some of these trails meet and go right up through there. I was hoping he was going to turn and walk right here in front of us, but he didn't. It's tight quarters in here. You can't see very far. Not a spot where you're going to see a lot of deer, but the ones you do see are pretty close. I would have had to have thought real seriously about shooting that buck if he'd have come by close enough. We saw another deer over in that cedar thicket probably 20 minutes after that buck come by. But I couldn't really get a look at it. It looked like another buck with his nose to the ground, but I couldn't see what it was. This is a good spot though. This is a spot that we both feel pretty confident we could kill one in. The wind has been steady and consistent all morning. Nothing's got us up here. And all that buck had to do was take a different trail and he would have been right here. 12 yards, 15 yards, right there. So good set. Definitely a spot that is going to be on the short list of spots to revisit. But down we go. It's going to get hot now. It's supposed to be 80 today, 84 tomorrow. But then the front moves in on Wednesday, and Halloween looks phenomenal. Like they are going to move like crazy on Halloween. Then after that, we're pretty much just going to be hunting, no matter what the weather's doing, because it's November, and things can happen this time of year. Good things, and bad things if you're not being safe.
You'll take safety first. Bad things can happen. Shall we go get some Taco Bell?
Taco Bell it is. You read my mind.
We're out.
What's up guys, it's October 29th and me, Brett, and Colby are about to go out and do a bunch of scouting. We got today and tomorrow to do a bunch of scouting, and then Thursday and Friday are gonna be really, really good weather days. So instead of going out hunting this afternoon, we're gonna go over to this new area and cover a bunch of ground. The reason we wanna go to this new spot is because the terrain is a lot different than what we've been hunting. There's a lot of big woods, big ridges that run out into creek bottoms, and a lot of ag fields that are close by. So we got some spots marked on the map that we're gonna go check out, and that's the plan for this afternoon, is just go cover a bunch of ground, not even worry about hunting this afternoon, just go and try and find a few different spots where we think there's gonna be some bucks. We got a couple trail cameras that we're gonna take with us. Hopefully we'll get both those up and see what we can find. But the spot we're going is about an hour away, so we'll drive over there and start burning some boot leather. Alright, we just walked through this whole piece here, and we started on the creek bottom that runs on the other side of this big thick bedding area down in here, and found some pretty good sign over there, and definitely a spot we'd check back in on. But after we walked that, we decided to loop back around here because we wanted to kind of check everything in the whole perimeter of this thick cover back in here. And when we got over here, we started finding a bunch of rubs. A lot of them are real fresh. Like this one I'm looking at right here is broke off and it's still got green bark on it and stuff. So there's a couple real heavy trails that come right out of this thick stuff back there and run right up this river bottom. I hung the trail camera in here, and we were talking about it a little bit earlier. This is definitely seems like a spot that you could hunt multiple times. It's a big enough area. There's enough sign around in different parts of it where you could probably get a few different sits in different spots in this little zone here. So pretty excited about this little spot. Like I said, today we're just kind of scouting and trying to have our game plan ready for when this cold weather hits. And this is definitely a spot we're going to be excited to come back into and try. Alright, we just jumped into a new spot here for the last hour and a half of daylight. There's a bunch of thick cover that runs right along the edge of the road here. So we jumped in here because we were looking as we were going along, saw a couple of roads, a bunch of big trails going in and out of this stuff. So right off the road, we're finding a bunch of deer turds and just found a pretty big rub right there that looks pretty darn fresh. Just heard a deer blow down the creek a ways. Shouldn't be blowing at us because our wind's blowing right back out at the road right now. So we're just gonna kind of creep through here for the last little bit and scout and hunt our way through it. See what we find. Already finding some good stuff, so that'll work. Alright, we just found a pretty nifty little spot here. After we crossed the creek, popped up, and there was a bunch of trails that led us right to this cedar tree out in front of us. There's a couple scrapes under there that look like they've been hit. It's pretty recent. We got tucked back in some of this brush. We're just gonna sit here for the rest of the night and see what happens. There's a big transition line up in front of us with a bunch of bedding cover out there. Wouldn't be surprised if one popped out right there and walked to these scrapes. Or we already heard a deer blowing down the way a little bit ago, so seems like there's a lot of deer in this little spot. Real good spot to come back to tomorrow morning or a morning in the future because it's easy to get to and a lot of thick cover and a lot of buck sign in here, so we'll see what happens. I'm pretty excited about this. I think we got a good chance right now, probably. Alright, we just made it back to the car here. We hunted this spot right off the road and ended up seeing a couple does in there. I never saw them, but these two could see them back in there and they were fighting with each other or something. This is definitely a good spot. We've found a couple big rubs back in there and lots of heavy trails, and it's super thick all along the creek right in there. So threw a camera up on one of them scrapes, and then right before we left, in that first spot that we scouted today, we got these pictures right here. Buck number 1, a shooter, and buck number 2, a definite shooter. And those two both come by right at last light. So should have probably just stayed in there, but the game plan for this afternoon was just to hit a bunch of spots and try and find several spots so we could go hunt when this cold weather hits. So found that spot, and then this spot in here, I'd definitely like to come back in there and try that because the amount of sign right off the road there looks pretty good. Anyway, we're gonna go get something to eat, and we'll be back after them. All right, it's the next morning now, and Colby and I are heading back into the second spot that we scouted yesterday. The reason we decided to come back over here is because the wind is blowing out of the southwest, which works better for this spot, we feel like, than the first spot that we scouted. This spot's not far off the road. We're just gonna get back on that same trail we were on and work our way in there and try and find a good tree to get up in where we can see out in some of this bottom ground out here. Early this morning we got a picture of a nice buck in here on that scrape that we hung a camera over, and on our ride in we just had some does going back in there on the road. There's a lot of deer in here. We just got to get back in there and find us a good tree to get in and get up where we can see down into that bottom ground. It's warm again this morning, like 70 degrees. The wind's blowing like 15 miles an hour, so the hope is to climb up in a tree and have one come by and shoot it. But nice thing about if we get in a spot where we can see is if we get up and can get eyes on something and they stick around in a spot or lay down in a spot out there, we might be able to get down and make a move on them with all this wind cover. We're gonna try this morning. If this don't work, then tomorrow we'll probably go back into that first spot we scouted with all the big rubs. That's the plan for this morning. We're gonna get in there and hopefully find a tree that's not too hard to finagle this saddle gear in. This is Colby's first morning in the saddle, so hopefully all goes smooth for us.
Yeah, he smells us for sure. Yeah, the wind's swirling. He might make a mistake.
It's coming. We just had a real nice buck come by us at basically first light when we set up in this tree. We look down, there's a giant trail across the creek right here. Our wind's blowing that direction, which works out perfect because the road is right over there. Except for in this case, it didn't work out perfect because he was standing over there. We saw him. First saw him over there in that green patch, and he was standing there looking. And we're like, he's got to be smelling us because our wind's just whipping that way. And all of a sudden he come running down towards us. Thought he was going to still come down this trail, but then he cut over at the last minute and crossed the creek about 40 yards down from us. He stopped right there, and then he worked into that thick brush kind of close to where we were set up last night. This morning we only moved over 70 yards this direction just so we could get up in a tree and see out in this bottom. There ain't a whole lot of trees to pick from out here, so we ended up in basically a toothpick of a tree up here. But we just climbed down from our tree, went back to where we crossed the creek this morning and dropped some of our stuff off. And we swung over and grabbed that camera that I hung last night. We're gonna dive into this bottom a little bit deeper here while we got some wind cover. There's a line of trees that runs down through the middle of this bottom that I'm kind of curious about. I'm just gonna get the wind in our face here and ease down that line of trees and see what we come up with for sign. A lot of these deer that we saw this morning were right by the road here where we hunted this morning. I like this spot up here by the road, and we might end up back up here again. I just want to know what that looks like down in there, so if we want to set up down there in the next couple days, we'll have a good idea where we want to go. Alright, we just found a little spot here in this drainage with a bunch of trails crossing through there. It's kind of an opening back here from the marsh that's back there. And there's like 4 or 5 trails that come right through this little low spot back here, going back into that side. So we set the camera right there, see what that gets. But there's several rubs that we can see in this little spot right here. Just looks like a spot where deer would want to cross to go from one side to the other. The reason we moved back here a little bit to check this out is just because that buck we saw this morning, he was right up by the road at first light, but then he worked his way back into the middle of this bottom. So I'm assuming he's probably hanging out back in the middle of this stuff more than he is up by the road there. And probably more bucks and more deer back in this zone. So we'll see though, could be wrong. Might not get nothing on this camera. We'll find out.